Derek, Daniel, we just did our predictions for the Nintendo Direct, which is happening tomorrow, but then the Pokemon Company said, no way, you're not being cut off there. There's also a Pokemon Presents happening on Pokemon Day on the 27th, 1 week from now. And it's not airing at a friendly time for you, Daniel. I'm looking at Cerebi.net, which has reported it as 2 p.m. in the UK. And you're 8 hours behind me, so that would be like, what, 6 a.m.?
It's 7, 8. Yeah, 6 a.m. because it'd be 9 a.m. for me.
Yeah.
It's always 6 a.m., John. It's always 6 a.m. for me.
That's just where you live. That's where you live now.
It's okay.
But yeah, Pokemon Presents is happening. They do this pretty much every year on Pokemon Day. But we're at an odd situation where I think most fans are fully aware that we don't necessarily want a new mainline Pokemon game. But whether we want one, whether we're going to get one, are two different questions. And Derek, before we started recording this, you were just throwing these facts at me, which were making me shake. So what exactly is the routine with most mainline games over the years?
Oh, man. So we haven't had a year off from Pokemon, whether it's a main game or a spin-off in the same vein as Let's Go, or Legends, or DLC since 2016. Before that, there was only, I believe, 7 years where there was no mainline game or remake released, or, follow-up like, Platinum. So no mainline titles. 2015, 2011, 2007, 2005, 2003, 2001, and 97. Pokemon is a frequent game. They always have at least something to keep you aware of the brand throughout that. So the other crazy thing is, we look at this and be like, makes sense that they would have to wait until the Switch successor to release a new Pokemon. And this is something you observed, John, and remembered, because I certainly didn't.
And the answer to that is no. They very rarely ever do that. So with the Nintendo 3DS, which launched in 2011, that came out in March. I believe Pokemon Black and White, the Western releases, launched on the DS in February of that year. It's like a month before the 3DS. And then a year after that, Pokemon Black and White 2 came out, not on the 3DS, still on the DS, a year into the 3DS's life. And then when the Switch came out, in 2017, they decided to release Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon at the end of that year. And the original Pokemon Sun and Moon only launched like 3 months before the Switch as well. So we cannot take console cycles into account with this thing. They release Pokemon games when they want to, all the time. So no, we are not safe from there being a mainline game announced here.
Well, and that's the thing. Our first mainline game for the Switch was the Let's Go games. So right. They could try to start off simple again, and that's like, all right, let's try for another Let's Go on the Switch successor next year. But the thing is, that I don't know if they'd want to start a new gen now unless they want to do the whole upgrade route. And yes, the new gen, but it's on better hardware now.
Yeah, next gen makes no sense to me. I think it's either a remake or a Legends game. If there even is one. Just a show of hands a moment. Who thinks there actually be a new mainline game in this Presents? My hand's down right now.
No,
I don't think so.
My hand's down. I'm
no.
Okay. I hope there isn't, but there's a small part of me that's like, okay, what if they do Legends Gen 5? And if they did, I'd be like, this is way too soon, but also I'd probably be quite interested in it, though. That's another part of the problem.
Yeah, and I have an idea for what they could do for a Legends Gen 5 in that regard, if they want to go that route. I think it'd be really cool, but also a lot of work and probably not ready in time if I had to guess. But, how about instead of, it might be Legends, but let's make it, maybe not call it Legends, but instead let's do Pokemon Black and White 3.
I would like that so much more than remakes.
Yeah, rather than the remake or here's Unova in the past, let's go into the future, see what happens, see what ends up to, or go really nuts and be weird with stuff. People love N. Let us play as N.
Whoa. Yeah.
In this Legends game. And just go from town to town, befriending Pokemon in its own unique way, trying to calm down. Something's happening with Getsis, and he's causing this mass hysteria among Pokemon that they're attacking people, so you have to be careful. So now as N, you must find a way to befriend these Pokemon and find Getsis and calm everybody down, all the Pokemon down, so you can restore the harmony, that sort of thing.
I'm in for this kind of thing.
So What you really want is Pokemon Coliseum 2, is what I'm sounding here. You want to befriend these
That's kind of what
Pokemon
it sounds
again.
like.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Sure.
Daniel, describe to me what a new Pokemon Black and White game looks like. Because that's kind of been the problem with the last few Pokemon games, and I think especially with the Gen 4 remakes, they just kind of look sterile and basic. What does a Gen 5 game look like realistically and also ideally?
It feels like at this point, because everybody, no matter who you are, if you like Black and White or not, no one's going to be happy with the way this game looks.
Nope.
Because this game was released and people were kind of tepid about it at first, and they were like, "Oh, this isn't really the most exciting Pokemon game." And as the years went on, it became a lot of people's favorites. It's one of my favorites as well. After Gen 2, I love Black and White. And so the fan base behind it, the very passionate fan base for Unova, is very cautiously awaiting the day that we hear anything about a Gen 5 remake, if that does happen. And in my mind, this is the best that Pokemon has ever looked on pretty much ever, especially on the DS. If you remember the sprites for this game, they were bouncing, they were animated, they were moving. It was like, I've never seen sprite work like this before or since then, honestly, in a Pokemon game. And if I had an ideal world, this would be like an HD 2D style Pokemon game. I would love to see something dynamic like that, but also paying homage to the original art style of it, because I do think Pokemon looked and felt the best in its sprite work, in the sprite format, because on the DS, the Heart Gold, Soul Silver games, the remakes, Gen 5, even Diamond and Pearl, like that was when I was most into Pokemon, and a lot of people's like peak memories of this game. And so yeah, if we get something that looks quite like that, that would be something that really stands out, and is something we're talking about. And I'm afraid it's just gonna look like Diamond and Pearl, but a little nicer in reality.
I'd even call like Black and White the origins of HD 2D in many ways, because there aren't that many differences between the art styles. One of them just has a lot more lighting effects in there, but otherwise it's the same kind of sprites on a 3D plane kind of look.
I mean, I had this idea because one of the things I was trying to come up with predictions, and obviously a lot of these will never happen, but we just finished up Ash's journey in the Pokemon series. Wouldn't that be a great opportunity to celebrate the gens that came before that he was involved in? And I thought it'd be really cool to sort of do something like a Pokemon Generations, where you're going through all the regions in a sprite-based game to make it manageable. So you don't fully remake it, but HD 2D, maybe not fully HD 2D, maybe just a really nice-looking sprite-based game with those sprite-based Pokemon. Collecting all of them.
Yeah.
Seeing all the...
I was just about to throw a rebuttal, being like, I don't want that with their current tech, but as soon as she said sprite based, I think that could be cool.
This would be too massive if you went current tech, and you have to go.
It would be cool, seeing half the generations in sprite based too, because we're at a point now where almost half of Pokemon's life has been in 3D, like from Gen 6 onwards. So it would be cool to see Gen 6, 7, 8, 9, just all in 2D. That'd be rad to see. I'd love to go around Aloha with 2D sprites.
There's so many different like so many different regions, so many different locations that I felt could have benefited from having that kind of 2D sprite based art style. And it's just that there's over 1,000 Pokemon now. That's a lot to for no matter what generation it is, we're gonna have the whole situation of every Pokemon can't be in every generation now, just because of limitations, because of time constraints and all that. Because Pokemon runs on its own schedule. The games are just a singular pillar. We have the animation, we have the trading card game, we have merchandise, and they all have to kind of keep up with each other, which is why these games get pushed out at the rate that they do. Most of the time, to our dismay, unpolished and not really done enough work to them. And so it's something to keep that kind of strategically to a minimum. So, for example, as you were saying, as a sprite-based work can definitely help to mitigate, the need to 3D model everybody in 1,000+ Pokemon. So,
I guess related to the idea that the Pokemon runs on its own schedule because of the animation and card game and all that. Has any of us kept up with Pokemon Horizons? Because with Ash not there, I don't know if there's that push to go through all the gyms and go to the Pokemon League in the same way. I don't know what Horizon's plot is, which might also be to the benefit, maybe also be why they decided to change it, so they could have the anime take its time more often, and not have to, like, oh, Ash is about to be at the championship. We got to get the next game out, so we have someplace to go.
On the topic of where the anime has gone, I don't really think they've really adhered to like the whole gym leader formula for a long time now. Like we've had Alola, which obviously didn't have gym leaders back then. They kind of just went more to the school setting. Pokemon Journeys actually did the thing of going to every region and you know, just meeting all these other Pokemon. Go had his own deal with catching everyone. That kind of was like the player avatar of actually catching everybody. So yeah, I haven't really kept up with Journeys because I haven't really just been involved in that as much since Ash left the series. I do want to check it out. I like checking it with Liko and what was the other boy's name?
I wish I kept up. I will say one thing.
I wish I kept up too.
This presents cannot underwhelm because they've already announced more episodes of Pokemon Concierge. So there's no way I'm going to be disappointed by anything. They've already won in my eyes.
I guess speaking of that, because last year is when Pokemon Concierge was announced, and you know we're going with these big ideas. Let's be honest, we need to keep our expectations well in check because here's what was announced at Pokemon Day 2023: the Pokemon World Championships taking place in Japan for the first time. Pokemon Trading Card Classic, a re-release of the original lineup of cards. Pokemon Concierge, Pokemon Unite updates. Sprigatito, Quaxley, and Fuecoco coming to Pokemon Cafe Remix. Pokemon Sleep, Pokemon Plus Plus, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC.
Yeah.
That's all we got.
That's pretty much every presentation they have. It's always like, here's more Pokemon Cafe Remix events. Here's some Pokemon Masters Sex events. That's always what it is. But usually there's like one cool thing at the end, whether it's a mainline game or a cool spin-off. Like we could have another like, I think a very likely one is Mystery Dungeon, because we had the remake of the first game back in 2020. I want to say 2019, 2020, one of those years.
Sure.
But it's been a while at the very least, and I would bet that the next one is not another remake. I think they've already returned. They've kind of proven what they need to. I'll just use that tech again to make a brand new game. And I'm saying this as someone who doesn't... I'm not invested in Mystery Dungeon, really, but I'd be happy for those who are to get another one.
Yeah, I think the happiest I've been at an announcement in Pokemon Day for a long time was when Pokemon's new Pokemon Snap was announced.
Mm-hmm.
That was exciting to see something like that come back. And it gave me hope that maybe one day, because that was an N64 game, Pokemon Puzzle League might also one day come back as well. Because...
Puzzle League, Snap, and Pinball. They're like the holy trinity.
There's a lot more characters that you can face off now, more than just the gym leaders, Team Rocket.
You know what'd be cool? Pokemon Concierge Battle League. Just going around that cozy island, battling all the lovely visitors. I'd love that.
Yeah, just put Puzzle League into a smaller context of characters. It doesn't need to be like everybody, because like that was the only time, really one of the only times that the games leaned into the anime, like directly from the anime. Yeah. Like they could lean somehow like that as well, or they could just do their own thing.
Well, the weird thing is, wasn't Pokemon Puzzle League not released in Japan?
Right, yeah, because they were going to get Pound Upon 64 without the Pokemon skin, but then they didn't get it until GameCube eventually. But yeah, they didn't get Pokemon Puzzle League.
It's a shame.
But speaking of, we can tie that back to NSO a second though, because we got that on our NSO. They didn't get it on their NSO. But speaking of NSO entirely, is it finally time for mainline games on Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance app?
I hope.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal because like they delisted the 3DS ones, which tied to Bank, which tied to Home, and now there's no way to connect those original 3 generations of Pokemon to the future.
You can connect via different generations with Home. You can connect with Pokemon Stadium and Stadium 2, which are also available because there's connectivity between different games in NSO. Have you seen already? So it just makes so much sense to have it there.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like red, blue, yellow, gold, silver, crystal even, I would just love to see those come back.
It'd be a bigger deal than the 3DS games were too, because like they could tie to bank. Like, you can take your save data and put it in bank, but you couldn't play online, and that's kind of the whole point of NSO, right? Is like that you can just connect with whoever and play games with each other, trade Pokemon, battle online with Red and Blue for the first time. Like that would be so cool.
Yeah, I played the Pokemon trading card game online, and that felt like magic. I never thought I'd be able to do that with anybody, but it was an amazing experience, and you could just do so much with that because Pokemon's all about connecting with other people and other players, and doing that online. It's the formula is already there, and they're not doing it.
I think Daniel and I are on board with this, and Derek's hesitating as to whether this is likely
the thing is, I'm like, they're not going to do this. They're not going to do this. I actually had NSO in here, but I'm like, I even have specifically not happening. The Pokemon games with stadium crossover features, like in my notes. I just don't see it happening yet, because they, for whatever reason, they want to maintain that value, I guess. But I will say, if we don't get a mainline, I think it's much more likely because it's a nice way to feed into that for people. Otherwise, though, I think we're much more likely to get either the Pokemon pinball games. Because we have two of those, from one on Game Boy, one on GBA. Or, speaking of Mystery Dungeon, even though it's already been remade, we could get Red Rescue Team.
I can see
which is the only Game Boy Advance Mystery Dungeon game. But
they put Link's Awakening on the Game Boy app, and that was like 4 years after the remakes. I think
exactly
after some time's passed, they don't seem to care. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Like, I don't know if the Mystery Dungeon remake is selling a ton of copies right now.
Yeah. To me, though, like if it's just mobile updates and NSO releases of the mainline games, I'd be satisfied. That's a big deal to me. I'd rather they have more time to develop whatever the next big game is and just give us, something that already exists in the meantime, but in like a new context to experience it. I'd be so happy with that.
Yeah, I want them to take a break. I don't need the next main whatever it's going to be. It feels like Gen 9 hasn't even been here that long for some reason. Maybe it's because we just had like DLC very recently, but it feels like it still just got here, and there's still a lot of time to just let that settle with the audience. And it's so frustrating because I want to I want Pokemon. It has such amazing ideas, and there's a lot of highlights in this game. Scarlet and Violet has some amazing highs in it, but it was hindered so much by just a lot of technical problems that could have been easily, I don't know about easily, but it could have been avoided with more time. And so, yeah.
I will say this. One thing that works in favor of it not happening, because you said it seems so soon, and you're right, Scarlet and Violet came out in 2022. Pokemon has never released a new generation earlier than 3 years.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel time for Gen 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's some 4-year gaps, but mainly 3-year gaps. So I think it's too early for a new gen.
I agree, yeah. I don't think it's implausible for new Legends though. I think they could do that. I hope they don't, but I think they could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last note I have on mine for predictions is I think we'll get a new TV project. I don't know what it could, not even TV, but like animation project, because we got that like Path to Power for the trading card game last year. We got Concierge. They usually like to have those little spin-offs like, here, check out this cool little thing. I think there was something related to Gen 9. Like, I forget what it was even called, but it had another animation project that went up on YouTube. So something like that, I would assume.
Yeah. Was that 3D remake of the first Pokemon movie successful?
I don't think so. Because they went back to traditional very quickly.
Yeah, like it was a fun little experiment, but I remember they'll just like, for every scene they'll show you what every Pokemon's reaction was, and it made the runtime like 20 minutes longer. It was such a weird pace, and it just looked strange. But I wonder if they'll remake any other movies like that.
I remember going onto Netflix, and the icon for that was just a very sad-looking Pichu looking back at me, and I'm just like, this is. It doesn't hit the same as the original. You're better off just watching the original animation for way more.
Yeah, I am excited for the prospect of Pocket Card Jockey returning tomorrow, though, in the Partner Direct. So we know there's a rumored Game Freak game in there, and that's stuck on Apple Arcade right now. Bring it back.
Bring it back.
Let's get Harmony Night Pokemon Edition. Why not?
I'd like that.
Oh yeah.
Any other final predictions? Because I think we've tried to keep it grounded here. We were mostly dismissing a new generation. We're kind of saying maybe there could be a new like Legends or Let's Go or whatever. I think we're mostly on, apart from Derek, we're mostly on the side of NSO drops of mainline stuff. But other than that, I don't think we're putting our expectations in anything too big here.
Nope.
We're humoring it, but we're not like you. We actually think that's going to happen.
No way.
We'll see. They'll translate Pokemon Trading Card Game 2 and release that on NSO because it was supposed to come out here. It was meant to come out here, but it was a different Pokemon company back then because the Game Boy Advance was about to come out, and so they decided instead of having it, possibly eat into sales, they just said, no, we're not going to localize Trading Card Game 2 while the Game Boy Advance is going to release.
Is there an in-house localization floating around there, or did they not bother at all? That's the question.
I don't think it was in the Giga Leak, to my recollection. There is it's of course not the same caliber, but they have the Pokemon trading card game for PC and mobile right now. I'd love that on Switch. I know it doesn't like the same adventure mode or anything, but just like a nice Pokemon card game on the Switch, that'd be neat.
Some kind of RPG, or just RPG, or just playing the trading card game, because it's actually really cool. I have it on my phone. I dabble with it because my sisters are getting into Pokemon with trading cards, and whenever they get a pack, they get it's over here. There's another little card with a QR code, and you can scan it, and then you get like a booster pack inside your game as well to kind of help promote that. So we kind of team up with that sort of thing. But yeah, it's something you could do as well for Switch. I think that trading card game has a lot of potential for Pokemon Company to boost if they just dip into that on the video game side as well. But we'll see.
Look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Free to play, has in-game transactions to get more cards and stuff, but plenty of opportunities to get the cards you need in order to build your decks, and doing super well, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game is still going strong, so I'd like to see an emulation of that for the trading card game at the very least, but yeah, who knows?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff I'd like to see, but realistically, I don't think it's going to happen. I loved Pokken. I thought that was a cool fighting game, but the Tekken team have just wrapped up Tekken 8, so it's probably not going to happen. I'd love another Pokemon Snap. Am I getting greedy there after waiting like however long we did for new Pokemon Snap? And like one other prospect that they've tried before with like Pokemon Dash is like a Pokemon racing game. And I don't want Pokemon Dash 2, but I do think a cool like on-foot racer where you can use like different elemental abilities and like flight and swimming. Like I think there's fun to be had in that, but I don't think they would do that though is the problem. But that could be neat if they did it.
Take that whole episode in the first generation where Ash is riding on the Ponyta and pretty much just make that into the game instead.
Yeah,
just there you go.
Oh yeah,
Pokemon card jockey.
I'll take anything.
Yeah.
But I
give us
think
something weird and wacky.
We should probably wrap it up before we just start throwing out anything. But there's a chance this could be good. But going by the past precedent of all other Pokemon Presents, it probably will not be. and if it is good, it's probably going to be 22 minutes of watching mobile stuff in boredom, and then 1.5 minutes of something potentially good. But we'll be there to react to it, though, as always. So thank you for joining us for our predictions, everybody. It's been cool to seeing a little window in the corner with your own predictions. And join us when this thing goes live. And if you want to join the little box in the corner, you can over on patreon.com/GV Gaming. You can just say whatever you want in our video. We have no choice but to publish it. Thankfully, most of our patrons are well behaved. From what I can see, no one's saying anything horrible.
Most of them.
Yeah. Usually.
You got to keep an eye on Vedran sometimes. But anyway, thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Till we meet again.